Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Can you Prabhupada's book up? Prabhupada's book. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parivadikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad of Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivadikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad of Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayd. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, We should offer our respectful obeisances to Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the Supremest Human Being, to Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, to Srila Vāsudeva, the Author, and to Srila Prabhupada, the Translator, Commentator, and our Spiritual Master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. On the 16th day of October 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 14, Ideal Family Life, text number 2. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshu Avastito Rajan Kriyaha Kurvan Yatochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Yatochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Hitochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Hitochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Yatochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Hitochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Yatochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Ladies? Shri Nārada Hovacha Griheshvavastito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Hitochitaha Vāsudevapanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Online, anyone?
Sri Nārada Vacha.
Sri Nārada Vacha
Griheshvavastito rajan
Griheshavastito rajan
Kriya kurvan yatochitaha
Kriya kurvan hitochitaha
Vāsudevarpanam sakshat
Vāsudevarpanam sakshat
Upasita Mahamunin
Upasita Mahamunin. Shri Nārada Uvacha. Shri Nārada Muni replied, Griheshu, at home, avastitaha, staying. A householder generally stays home with his wife and children. Rajan, O king, kriyaha, activities, kurvan, performing, yatochitaha, suitable, as instructed by the Guru and Shastra. Vāsudeva, unto Lord Vāsudeva. Arpanam, dedicating. Sakshat, directly. Upasita, should worship. Mahamunin, the great devotees. Okay. So, translation responsibly, Nārada Muni replied, My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood. And instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna. Vāsudeva. How to satisfy Vāsudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. Okay, I'll read the full translation now. Nārada Muni replied, My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood. And instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vāsudeva. How to satisfy Vāsudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. Purport. Excuse me. The format of Grihastha life should be dedication to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.1 it is said, Anashita karma palam karyam karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha nanadagni chakriyaha. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Close quote. Whether one acts as a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, or sannyasi, he must act only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva, Krishna, the son of Vāsudeva. This should be the principle for everyone's life. Nārada Muni has already described the principles of life for a brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. And now he is describing how a grihastha should live. The basic principle is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The science of satisfying the Supreme Lord can be learned as described here, Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. The word Mahamunin refers to great saintly persons or devotees. Saintly persons are generally known as munis, or thoughtful philosophers concerned with transcendental subject matters. And Mahamunin refers to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying. Sorry. Hare Krishna. Okay, Mahamunin refers to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva. These persons are known as devotees. Unless one associates with devotees, one cannot learn the science of Vāsudevarpana, or dedicating one's life to Vāsudeva, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In India, the principles of this science were followed strictly, even 50 years ago. So Prabhupada is writing this in the mid-70s, so he's talking about the mid-20s, I guess. Even 50 years ago, I saw that in the villages of Bengal and the suburbs of Calcutta, people engaged in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam daily when all their activities ended, or at least in the evening before going to bed. Everyone would hear the Bhagavatam. Bhagavat classes were held in every village, and thus people had the advantage of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes everything about the aim of life, liberation or salvation. This will be clearly explained in the next verses. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilatam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this is one of the more revolutionary principles of Krishna consciousness. When you think about it, that whatever you do, you have to dedicate the fruits of your actions to Krishna. So the first question is, well, what about me? How am I going to pay the rent? You know? So that can also be part of dedicating what's actually to Krishna. I have to live somewhere, therefore I'm paying the rent, but I'm just living in this apartment so that I can act in other ways and lead a life in which I dedicate to Krishna. So that principle is nicely articulated in the Bhagavad Gita, this famous verse. Those who know it can sing along. Vyagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. And now you can hear the new translation. Work has to be performed as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So, Prabhupada explains that this is an integral part of Bhakti Yoga, because what's the material disease? The material disease is attachment to the fruits of one's labor and trying to enjoy it, right? And even better, take the surplus, invest it, make more money, and then we can enjoy even more, right? This is the ethos of material society. So Krishna consciousness is just the opposite. Just the opposite, is that we no longer try to be the supreme enjoyer of our facilities. That's the how the false ego is fed, right? Atta griha cheta sutapta vitta janasya moho yamaham mameti. This very graphically described in different parts of the Bhagavatam. But Krishna gives this simple principle in the 3rd chapter. This is Karma Yoga, and it's described by the Yogendras how a pure devotee is feeling as you go through your day. You know, I mean, the perfection. We saw it with Prabhupada. Everything he did, every motion he made, he picked up the phone. And he did it, you understand, it's like worshipping the deity. Oh, this is going to be something I do for Krishna. He'd speak to someone, you know, a devotee or the landlord or whoever it was, but the purpose was to connect to Krishna, to increase his movement to like that. So when one's every breath, every step, you can actually say, yes, I'm doing this for Krishna, I'm walking from here to there, so I can get to the kitchen, I can do the pots. So that sanctifies your steps. You know, that you become, your steps remind you of Krishna because they're for Krishna. And because, remember, as we read this morning, this famous verse, Smarta Vyaksatatam Vishnu Vismartavyo Najatatik Sarva Vidinase Shedaksur Etayoreva Kinkara. The basic principle of Krishna consciousness is to always remember Vishnu. And Prabhupada, in his translation, says, and Krishna is the original Vishnu. So in other words, always remember Krishna. So that has to pervade your whole life. Now it's difficult, of course, being a householder you have to get a job, and if you can't do your own business and be in control of your environment, you know, and play kirtans while you're working at the store, then you have to figure out how each thing that you do in your job is for Krishna. So it's difficult. But that's the price you pay if you want to have this independent existence in Grihastha ashram. And whereas in the Brahmachari ashram or the sannyasa ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, it's more obvious, right? Why is the sannyasi walking from village to village or house to house? so that he can sustain himself and at the same time enlighten the grahastas that he deals with, right? In other words, that's part of it. If he doesn't do that, then he's not really serious. So in Prabhupada's movement, there's so much to do and so many projects going on for propagating Krishna consciousness. And that works both ways. In other words, the very act of doing that pleases Krishna. And then whatever you gain, you sell these books, then the Lakshmi comes and it goes to the BBT to buy more books and spread, It's not that all. Because, I've been around long enough and, it's not a mystery that this going and meeting people and being able to convince them to give you Lakshmi for a higher cause, whatever, that can also be used independently to get money and support a household life. And that we've seen that. Prabhupada warns about that in his books. He says if you start using that to sell merchandise, then that's a corruption of the Sankirtan spirit. You're not selling books anymore. You're selling jewelry or something. So that's has to be guarded against. But if you're in a household, if you're a householder, it all becomes, well, how am I going to support myself? What am I going to do? I joined Hare Krishna when I was 18, and I was a brahmachari for 9 years. Then I got married. I didn't learn any skill. I don't have a degree. What am I going to do? So that's what Prabhupada, he started the business of the spiritual sky incense, so there could be a work within ISKCON, and at the same time support one's family, but you have the association of devotees and it's a spiritual sky incense, and there's a picture of Krishna on the pack, So it's a compromise. Household life is going to be a compromise. It's a concession, If you have to have the sex life and it's so demanding, this is the way you do it and keep it under control because it's under rules and regulations. But this is a very strict verse that we just read today, that those who stay at home, Nārada Muni is saying, those who stay at home. All right, this thing is acting up. Sorry about that. Those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood. All right, so not everything you earn is going to go into the hundi, obviously. Some of it has to go to the landlord and to buying the groceries and to support the family. And instead of trying to enjoy the result of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna and Vāsudeva. Okay, as far as possible. Prabhupada set up, I think, 50%, should be given, which is a lot. Nowadays, the rents are so difficult. You actually have to work 2 jobs just to pay the rent. You can get the groceries. They've created a nightmare society. The simple life that Prabhupada describes, based on agrarian, having your own plot of land and being able to raise and feed your family and sell the surplus. Much more simple and conducive to Krishna consciousness. But we're living in the society here, so we find, an example. There's been very, very nice examples, and are very nice examples of householders in this community. But the Gaur-Keshava and his family, they're so ideal because they come to the temple. He gives class. They're raising the kids in kirtan and so forth. But they're getting an education. I remember them sitting. They each had their computers and they were on the class. I think it was during COVID or whatever. They were doing their class out here, learning how to read and write, and so they can sustain themselves. But the center always has to be Krishna in any endeavor, and it's important to have householders, because even if it's not, how does this temple go on? Of course, the collections from Sankirtan help sustain everything, but also we have our householder mostly Indian congregation, who are supporting the temple, giving so much, especially on Janmashtami, and there's Mother Mercy, otherwise known as Marcy. She gives a substantial donation every Janmashtami, and distributes books as well. It's very gratifying to see Marcy, because Marcy has been attending these Bhagavad Gita classes for maybe 20 years now, in person until COVID, and then since then online. And she's a very saintly lady. So the whole point of this now is he's filling out. He described the sannyasis. We've seen the ultimate sannyasi, the Python man, who's just completely dependent on Krishna. He doesn't have to, worry about the household and all those things. But the household ashram is obviously essential. Otherwise, where's the next generation of brahmacharis going to come from? It has to be born, raised, right? So it's integral to the working of the varnashram system. But there are rules and regulations, and that's the surrender. It's not meant for recreational sex. It's strictly controlled for the purpose of having children, to raise them as nice bhaktas for Krishna's pleasure, and that kind of consciousness. Then, what does Krishna say? This phrase, Dharma varuddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshama. In the 7th chapter, he's describing, I am this, I am that, rasoham samsakona, I am the taste of water, light of the sun and the moon, the ability in man, all of these different things, And I am also sex. Prabhupada always calls it sex life. Okay. If you look that term up in the wiki dictionary, it's more than sex. It's everything that surrounds sex. Making all of it. So anyway, but sex is meant for having, within Grihastha ashram, is meant for having Krishna conscious children. That's why the Garbhadhana samskar. I just heard Prabhupada give a lecture and he mentioned that this is in ISKCON. Even brahmacharis learn what that is sometimes. It's chanting 50 rounds before trying to conceive a child. Yeah, you knew that. And then the question arises, my God, after chanting 50 rounds, be so blissed out, do you really still want to anyway. But, why is that? Because the consciousness of the mother and the father attract a certain kind of soul to come into the womb, So you'll have devotee children then, much more likely, you see. And that's the whole point. What was Arjuna's fear? One of his fears, if he killed all outside and all these men, just all these men being killed, they're going to leave the women unprotected. They will then, become degraded, and all kinds of varna sankara will grow, just like we have here in the society. Nobody's being trained in Gurukul, and it's a nightmare. There's a certain percentage who aren't even civilized. They're like, beasts. They're just beasts of prey. They try to prey on people, other people. So that's the modern Kali Yuga. But the whole idea of these shastras and the Krishna's propagation of Krishna consciousness, when yadayadai dharma, so when dharma is. There's discrepancies for the benefit of society in general. If you have a good progeny coming up who are pious, who are devotees, then the whole society becomes livable. Otherwise, you have what we have now, which is practically unlivable. The only effort is the Krishna conscious movement to try to save it, Kali Yuga. But it's always comes back down to the basic principle of, if you're in the bodily concept of life, if that's strong, if you're in the lower modes of nature, then you're going to be controlled by the lust and the greed and the self-centeredness and all of these things. Just the opposite of karma yoga, just the opposite of what we're reading here. So this is actually a revolutionary movement. What's that famous verse? This one we should know. Tad bhagvasargo janataga viplavo yasmin bhati shlokam abadnavatapi namanyanantasya yashon kitanayak shunvanti gayanti gunanti sarava. So this verse has a special place in Prabhupada's movement. He took great inspiration from this verse. It's, I don't know the exact verse, but it's in the 5th canto, the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, where Nārada Muni is explaining to Vāsudeva why he's feeling a little depressed and disturbed, even though he just wrote all of these shastras, including Bhagavad Gita, Padma Purana, all the other Puranas, and all these different things, Upanishads and everything. So he didn't feel that something's missing, So Nārada Muni is explaining to him. First he says, Nayad vichas chitta badang areshed. Whatever you write, if it's very chitta badam, every verse is very nice and very good literary, but it lacks any reference to Krishna, to God, to the process of devotion, then it's like a pilgrimage place for crows. That's a polite way of saying garbage dump, you know. Now, as Ashram Maharaj, I think it's several times he mentioned this in his last time he was here. Used that. But the swan-like devotees don't go there. That's the idea. We're meant to be attracted to the books, you know, the kind of books that Prabhupada translated, the Bhagavatam, as he explains so nicely in this purport. Even 50 years ago, back in the 1920s, it was a practice that the villages would listen to Bhagavat morning and evening, or maybe morning Chaitanya Charitamrita, evening Bhagavat, you know. And so everybody was getting that. And, you know, the great blessing, no radio, no TV. And what to speak of the internet, you know. So when they you know, their culture was coming very organically from books, and even they would be without books. They had in the poets, you know, devotional poets. They would go from village to village and they would sing songs about Lord Chaitanya in Bengal, you know, and Ram, of course, Ram, very popular, you know. So you can imagine all the villages would gather with their children, you know, trying to keep them quiet like we do here. And then they would listen to these songs and plays about Ramchandra. How wonderful that is. So we live in a different age. There's the disadvantage, but there's also advantage. In remote areas of Minnesota or Montana, you know, you can be listening to a class by Srila Prabhupada, by Ranjan Swami, Shivaram Swami, Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. You know, so there's an advantage to it also, but it has to be just like with household life. It has to be used for that purpose. Otherwise, it becomes a strong occasion for degradation. Things can always have these two uses, right? You can have milk, you know, and you can make sandesh and burfi and offer to the deities, or you can make up, you know, some clam chowder or something, you know. You have clams, that's a living entity, you know, that's dying. So that, how to do that, how to live your life in such a way that you sustain yourself and your family if you're married, but at the same time you're pursuing your path of bhakti. That we need the knowledge of the Shastra, we need the example and the knowledge of the Mahamunis, you know, the Acharyas, here he calls them great learned saintly persons, the saints. So therefore the association of devotees is essential, and the association of great devotees is essential. Now oftentimes we can't get that directly, you know, the Maha-acharyas, Paramahamsas, but we get them through the media. We get them through the books, and we get them through the media. And so that, you know, being eager to take advantage of that association, it makes all the difference. In this age, you know, your destiny is which key do you push? This one will take you to hell, this one will take you back to Vaikuntha. You have to know what site are you going to visit. It all comes down to that. So you know, it's often not easy because it's so easy to get access to the, you know, Maya. I mean, it's always easy, but the power of it, you know, the power of you know, the movies, you know, back before I joined, you know, the movies, they're so overwhelming. You go there and, you know, I remember one, you know, just from my childhood, I saw this movie several times. I used to be attracted to horror movies, you know, and there was a movie called Them. You can imagine how foreboding that is. What is Them, you know? And it was based on the idea that radiation from the atom bombs produces mutations, right? So there was a mutation, and the mutation was these huge ants. I mean, the size of houses. They were created, you know, and they were threatening what to do about them, you know, like that. So that stayed with me, you know, as a child, you know, and everything. But we're into hearing, you know, we can see movies about the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, you know, see the remembrances of Srila Prabhupada, following Srila Prabhupada. I highly recommend. I remember when it came out on disc, and I purchased the disc, and it was a wonderful effort done by Yadobar. he actually spent, was it I think it was winter months he spent there in my apartment, adding, what do you call it, notes, subtitles, because a lot of the Americans, I mean, they come on there and they speak, and but he was going to sell it in England, and the Indians couldn't understand the accent, the American accent of the English, so he had to type it out so that they could read it. He spent days doing it. But it's a lot of video, whatever video they had of Prabhupada, which is a lot. And he went around, he and his wife, I think, went, and to find the devotees who were in the video, and asked them to narrate what's going on, what happened before and after. So it's fascinating, it's wonderful. And now they put them up on YouTube, and so you can see them all. From the beginning, those wonderful videos that were shot in 26th Avenue. One fellow was doing some kind of project, and there's wonderful footage of that. So that is the proper use of all of this technology. But obviously, it can also be used for degradation and evil, actually. So the householder, they have the facility, they have some independence. So they have to really welcome in. This is the other thing. Welcome in the sannyasis and the traveling, and give them, honor them, wash their feet, and listen to them. The whole idea is that they will enlighten them. That's one of the things that the sannyasis tend to do. They go and beg a pound of milk, and then they give a lesson. They're giving the householders an opportunity to serve by doing all kinds of things, and especially by hearing. So that's what Prabhupada was. Of course, he used the airplanes and all the other stuff, but he went wherever he could, wherever he get an audience, and he would speak the absolute truth of Krishna consciousness. And because of his purity, and because of the power of the message and the method of chanting, it's spread all over the world, and it's still spreading. Whoever really is open to the process and the knowledge is drawn in, attracted. It's naturally attractive. So that's how the householders can help. And of course, part of it is that they become detached from their results of their work, whatever they have left over, by helping the temples and giving it to Krishna. And it's a wonderful way that the preaching goes on and expands, and many people are blessed by the opportunity to give. So that's what I understand from this. And that's what's being stressed in this particular purport. The science, how can we learn this science of satisfying the Supreme Lord? Sakshat upasita mahamunin, by directly worshipping the great munis, the great acharyas. And in this age, we should remember that when we're reading Prabhupada's books or hearing these wonderful purports, we are performing the most important service for Srila Prabhupada, which is to hear from him. And the more we hear and actually take these instructions to heart and try to activate them, and that's even better service. But even just hearing, just letting our intelligence understand this, and we accept the truth of it, even though we may not be able to follow it perfectly, but we're willing to read it on our own, or even better, within the association of devotees, so that we are part of the culture. It's a culture. And it's revolutionary. I mean, the whole world is, on a knife edge here of falling into fascism, and who knows what's going to happen, But our strategy is we have to be as Krishna conscious as possible, at every minute, at every moment, and try to give Krishna consciousness to others. That is our basic mission, and that will, and when, who knows if it'll blow up tomorrow. I mean, I don't want to scare anyone, but don't read the news. Jeez. I mean, I've been, around for almost more than 70 years. And the only thing I can compare it to, and I'm not going to give you an explanation, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Everyone really thought, this is it, this could be it, Bob Dylan even wrote a song, A Hard Rain. He's sitting in New York City, bullseye, and he's like, oh, hard rain, this is the rain of the bombs. So how do devotees react to that? Well, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, we try to chant constantly, try to spread Krishna consciousness, which is the only way that it can reform society, so everyone isn't at everyone's throats, and they don't prioritize the material sense pleasure over everything else, and always be conscious of my status. And, you know, oh my God, the false ego. So that's my take on this verse. Any questions or comments on the launching into the ideal family life? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. When Maharaj and I were in Delhi, ISKCON Delhi, we had the privilege of hearing from Yadubar Prabhu.
Oh.
And he was working to remake all of the videos in 4K, or like really good quality.
Enhanced quality, yeah.
And it was really nice. He played a few segments or clips, and all the devotees, they were very enthusiastic. And His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he actually has a room where you can edit videos, and he was saying you can use that room, you know.
Wow.
So all the devotees, they were supporting this.
The hybrids, very important, Yeah, Yadubar and his wife, they have done and are doing incredible service in this movement. I remember just my own little, if you allow me a little personal vignette. The very first movie he made, I forget what it was called, The World of the Hare Krishnas or something like this. He was in Brooklyn. It was 74. I don't think I was even initiated yet. Early 74, and he had it all made, and many of the he had a lot of the devotees there who were in the movie, because he was showing what's going on, and there was a show of this, offering food and this like that. So he was ready for the narrator, and my voice was much better then. And so I was I had a good voice, and I pronounced the Sanskrit. And so he wanted me to narrate the film, and I was very eager to do that. But I had just like now, I had trouble, So I did everything that I could possibly think of to try to get my voice in shape to do this. I was standing on my head. I was taking this and that, and so much Brahmastra juice, which was the cure for anything. If anyone was sick with any disease, take Brahmastra boost. That was it. But I couldn't do it, so I missed out, and he had to, do it. So he had to hire somebody, a professional, and show him how to pronounce, Bhakti Vedanta and all these things. So you'll hear that. I almost made it in immortality, anyway. Yeah. So you were it was part of a question. Oh, you were just giving a vignette. How? Yeah. Those. And he made other movies about ISKCON in general, and there was one about the BBT. What was it called? I forget. But they had me. I wasn't actually a transcriber, but they set me up as a transcriber so they could film. They asked me, "Oh, I see you were typing up something." No, I was just hitting the keys. I wasn't really transcribing, because that was what was going on there, and they needed. Well, more brilliant than the sun. That's what it's called. More brilliant than the sun. Any other comments? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the commentaries about thoroughly studying the goal of life and actually satisfying the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Can you comment on that? What does it mean thoroughly studied, and what does it mean satisfying the Lord? Is that referring to jnanis and bhaktas, or something different?
All right, that's in the purport here, right?
Yeah.
You remember where it is about in the beginning?
Somewhere, I think, towards the end.
Oh,
in the middle.
Oh, here it is. Saintly persons are generally known as munis, or thoughtful philosophers concerned with transcendental subject matters. And the Mahamunin, this is plural, refers to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva. Is that it? Yeah. So how do we learn it? How do we? Knowledge it always comes back to knowledge. So Sakshat Upasita Mahamunin, by directly worshipping Mahamunis. This is very similar to what we find in the second chapter, first canto. Right? The verse we chant, Nashta Prayesha Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavaditam Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So one, by regular attendance in classes on Bhagavatam, which means by regularly hearing Bhagavatam. From whom? That's the whole point. Nityam, from the Bhagavats. So you're serving the person Bhagavat by hearing the book Bhagavat from them, hearing them, the translation and their explanation like that. So we're doing that. So that's the kind of association that is essential to keep one's knowledge fresh, and to review it, because the material mind and Maya is always trying to cover it, put it behind, because you want to do something else. But worshiping the great Munis by hearing from them, concerned with transcendental subject matter, to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying the Lord. So they're practicing devotee. That's the acharyas. They show by their activities how to live according to the Shastra. The three qualities of acharyas we should always remember. They know the Shastra backwards and forwards. They live according to those tenets. Not tenant. A tenant is someone who lives in an apartment. A tenet. And they teach. They took the trouble to teach. That's the acharya. So that's what he's referring to here. He calls them Mahamunis, great learned sages. And so that's it's all based on association. Unless we're in association with devotees, one can't learn the science of Vāsudeva Arpanats and worshipping Vāsudeva. So that's essential. That's why Prabhupada set up the morning program with the Bhagavatam class as a central part of it. Essential. I hear lectures every day, and he's talking about this is why churches are, religion is becoming less prominent today, and it's going on. The young people are not going into those churches. The congregation is older and older and smaller, because they're not offering something substantial that they can apply in their life in this world. So Prabhupada's temples are meant to be places where people who have some kind of inclination toward spiritual life can come and be enlivened and said, "Oh, this is what I'm looking for." It's not based on fear; it's based on love, ultimate love. And that's what bhakti means: love, right? And that's a fact. And so that ultimately that love is stronger than any other thing. So the whole point here is that every one of the ashrams, every one of the varnas and the ashrams are essential in society. And the grahastha, a strong grahastha ashram is also essential for a society based on Krishna consciousness and any community or unit. So that's the whole idea. And we're just starting this chapter now, so he's going to go on. And I'm looking at this avatar katamritam, drinking the nectar of the Katha about the different avatars of Krishna. I mean, you can imagine growing up, just think of Mukunda, little Mukunda, to be always surrounded with these descriptions. And of course, there have been little cartoons made, and I'm sure of the fight between Hiranyaksha and the Varaha. That's it. and the thing with Vritrasura, that whole pastime. I thought when I read that, I first read that, this would make a great movie. You have Chitraketu, he's banging his head against the wall, his child was killed. Then he'll bring the child back to life. And then he preaches to, well, whose son am I really? I've had so many sons, So he takes sannyas, he sees Sankirtan, and he gets cursed, and the whole thing. So that's what to fill your mind with. What are you actually thinking about? And it's a great battle because there's so much distraction. And this is what Krishna conscious movement is all about, to provide the subject matter. And I'll just put in a plug for the shlokas. The shlokas it's all made of shlokas, right? Except for some fifth canto thing. Someone referred me to a verse in the fifth canto that they wanted to chant, and it was this prose thing. So I made a recording of it, but it was like there was no meter to it, So they said, "Thank you. I'll try to slow it down and see if I can do it." But the Sanskrit is especially potent. That's why Prabhupada took so much trouble, and he insisted that we heard it, and he wanted us to memorize it, because when you have those, that provides Just think, this is the second prayer of Bhishma Dev. Okay, it's a very dramatic scene. He's lying there, you know, the whole thing. And then he starts with these prayers, and everyone's listening, beginning with Krishna, you know. So here's a prayer, and what is he saying there? He's lying on this bed, you know, arrows, meaning he's shot through with the arrows, but he's not dying because he has the power, not dying, and then he wants to. Tribavalna kamanang tamalavarnang rabakadagoravarambadang dadani. Vapadalaka kolavatananam vijayasake ratadastume nabadya. So he's praying there, and first he's describing Tribavalna kamanang, most attractive in all three worlds. He's just looking at Krishna. Tamalavarnam, the color of a tamal tree. Ravikadagora, his beautiful silken garments are shining like the sun. Ravikada, the hands of the sun, like the sun rays. Ravikadagora varambadang, the best of garments he's wearing. Vapar Alaka, his Vapar Alaka Kolavatan and Abjam, his face surrounded by this beautiful lotus face surrounded by beautiful curling locks of hair. Vijayasake, oh friend of Vijay, of Arjun, Vijayasake, Ratarastume Nabadja. May my attraction, my love be drawn to him without being diverted to anyone else. It's so rich, you know, and you don't need video. You just chant it a few times, you know the meaning, the picture comes out, you know. Just like there's one verse in the, you probably heard this one before from me, in the Govinda Lilamrita, describing Krishna coming back from the forest with the cows. It's a whole big event. There's a whole ashtaka is written about just that. You know, have you seen? And so this one is just a meditation, you know, this is Krishna's copyright. It's Sanskrit. Denu vrindam anamandamayantam, Venu gitam amratam visrajantam, Renu rushitatalakabantam, Kenu vikshitamayor namodantam. So he's describing Denu vrindam, the herds of cows. That's what Denu vrindam. Anumandam, he's walking very leisurely behind. You know, he's bringing the cows back and all the boys are behind him, you know. Anumandam ayantam, he's walking. And as he's doing that, Venugitam, he's playing the flute. Venugitam amritam, he's creating this nectar of the sound of the flute. Venugitam amritam visrajantam. And what's happening with all those cows? They're bringing up a lot of dust. So the dust is coming up and powdering his beautiful curly hair. Renu, so you got the Denu, Venu, and Renu, see? Renu Rushita Chalalakabantam, as his hair sways back and forth. He's visualizing that. And then he says, Kenu, who indeed? Kenu Viksha, seeing this sight. Kenu Viksha Samayor Namodandam, will not enter into the state of the highest bliss. Now, of course, he's seeing that in his spiritual eye. But he's giving us an opportunity to see. When you pray, you chant that a couple of times and you know the meaning of every word, you can see it in your mind's eye. So that's a gift, you know. And it's just the Bhagavatam is filled with verses like that. We should take advantage. I'll help you to learn how to chant it. You know, there's so much. The meter is so nice. You know, if you can keep a beat, and essential part of it. So that's part of the gift, and to fulfill that injunction, smart objects to Tam Vishnu or Vismatavina Jachachit. Always think of Vishnu or Krishna and never forget him. So when you're walking from A to B, you can be chanting that verse and you're, you know, thinking of Krishna. Yes, we have another question from Vera Bahu, is it? Vera Bhadra. Vera Chandra. Go ahead.
Thank you for the class.
You're welcome.
I have a question about this end of purport. Srila Prabhupada told us that in that time, 50 years ago, in every village,
people had the advantage to hear Bhagavatam.
Yeah, they hear in Bhagavatam. And my question is that it is known that Srila Prabhupada many times stressed that we should hear this Srimad Bhagavatam from the self-realized person.
Yes.
And how we understand that not, in these villages, not everyone realized soul, self-realized soul, but they, and also like we, our society, also it is known that when we speak something, we translate our consciousness is not only speaks this topic what we speak, but our consciousness is how to say penetrating ears who listen.
Well, what
and so
I get the point.
And so my question that how to say how these people and we can take advantage of these scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Well, first of all, we have the advantage, the invaluable advantage, of having the Bhagavatam given to us and explained by Srila Prabhupada. So this whole diet, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, because he was giving the purport, and he was just giving, he wasn't trying to impose some of his own ideas of what the Bhagavad Gita means, which is common. You have all these Bhagavad, but this one guy thought it was a conversation between the psychiatrist and his patient, or something like that. And even Gandhi tried to use it to prove ahimsa. I mean, you find the word ahimsa a couple of times in Bhagavad Gita, but it's not, obviously, it's a battlefield. The success of Krishna's preaching is that Arjuna fights. So ahimsa is obviously not an absolute principle, although it's important, without it. So that's one point, is that the Bhagavatam is coming through Prabhupada, and we're not trying to, especially he mentions, they're not giving some Bhagavad reading 7 days, trying to imitate, the Purikits thing, to make money, to become famous and make money. That's a pollution of the whole thing, and that corrupts the whole process. When it becomes an enterprise for that. But someone who's actually, reading it and explaining it for trying to help the audience. In other words, to try to give it as it is, as instruction to improve their lives. And that was Prabhupada's the motive in writing it and in talking about it and in setting up the temple so we could hear clearly.
My question mostly was about
the villages?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, it depends on which village, and which speaker. Clearly that could also be corrupted. But you had the impression that the villagers didn't have much to give for that except their time. You don't get the idea that there was any money being exchanged. So it was done as a service or a way of celebrating, just like you have troubadours, going from place to place. They may get a few pennies or something, donation, but they're not doing it for that. That's just a way of honoring them. But they're actually enjoying, spreading the science of Bhagavatam, which is filled with all kinds of wonderful stories as well for the villagers. So it's if it had been corrupted in some way, it probably wouldn't have we referred to it, I think, in this way. Commonly, predominantly, it was done just as a way of celebrating the Bhagavatam and helping the villages, enlivening them, the culture, culture. This is what their so-called entertainment was, And I've heard Prabhupada talk about it in other contexts. Songs about Lord Chaitanya that would go around and be sung, right? So it's very auspicious. People become interested and they'll learn more. They read Chaitanyas every time they join ISKCON, Hare Krishna. So it's all depends. You're right, on the motive of the person doing it and the purity of them doing it. But I get the impression that this was a wholesome thing going on, that they weren't doing it for some, nefarious purpose or really just for the money. But it was really a celebration of the culture, and you can imagine how happy the villagers were to hear these wonderful stories. Instead of, the TV coming, bringing all kinds of crap in from Bombay or whatever. But no, this is local culture, and it's very enlivening.
And
so that's why.
And also, in first chapter, first canto, predicted that this age, Kali, and this many cheaters, something like this, false guru, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And so how understand if we see these villages, is so many villages, and so in one for example, in one village is good who but sometimes is some cheater. Like we know even like famous story about Bhaktivinoda Thakur that when he was in charge in this area, Orissa, and one yogi
Bhishikishain
said that I'm Vishnu.
No, that's Bhishikishain.
So this is also very common way. And so my question also, we know that when we listen, also when someone speaks, someone listen, needed to qualify it both, because of if we no interest in, but we listen some good things, but we cannot accept.
Don't touch by the lips.
Sincere want to take this Krishna consciousness, we can do it even from not good person.
Yes. I mean, what to speak of the village? You don't need the village anymore. Just get on a computer, YouTube. You key in this one, key in that one. So many kirtans are on there. So we need to be careful, and we can have like a certain, and many devotees do. They have a list, or they have their favorite kirtaniya, ISKCON chanter. I mean, this be my experience in the Ratha Yatra, the LA Ratha Yatra. I think most of us were up there. And one of the high points, if not the high point, was that nearly final kirtan with Bhagavatam there and Janavi Harrison singing, and those young kids, all were skilled in their own way, I mean, that was wonderful, I wish they could have gone for another hour there. But so one has to be able to discern, and listen. I don't know who this person is, and or even sometimes I do know who that person is, so that therefore I don't know. But we have such a variety of kirtaniyas and class givers and even writers now in ISKCON, and of course Prabhupada is always there and his basis of everything. So if we're smart, we can pick those influences that will be uplifting, and that's my take on that, Prabhu. Okay, we need to adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.